Il est bon, il est Puis Annie, elle fait quoi? Ça me surprend qu'il n'y avait pas fait de changement quand il s'est ouais, ça fait longtemps que Carole était là. Mais Carole était là avant.
Bonsoir tout le monde. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the October 3rd, 2022 meeting. We'll we'll get this started. Item 1, item 1, roll call. Tous les membres du conseil sont ici. I'll ask everyone to stand for the territorial land acknowledgement statement and a moment of reflection, as well as the national anthem.
Nous reconnaissons que nous sommes sur le territoire non cédé des Anishinaabe et les terres traditionnelles des peuples Haudenosaunee, Huron, Wendat et Kanyen-Kehaka. Nous reconnaissons notre obligation commune de respecter, d'honorer et de préserver ces terres et les ressources naturelles qu'elles contiennent.
Whereas Canada is founded upon principles that recognize the supremacy of God and the rule of law, let us take a moment of personal reflection. Merci tout le monde. Thank you, everyone. Item 4, additions, deletions, or amendments. We're adding an item 18A for Councillor Sosi for firefighter recognition. Did we have anything else to add, members of council? Hearing none, we'll move on to 5. Motion to approve the agenda as amended. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Conseiller Larin, seconded by Conseiller Buisson. Tous en favor? Opposé? Carried. Item 6, déclaration d'intérêt pécuniaire. Aucun. Item 7, adoption of minutes. Regular council minutes of September 19, 2022, and special council minutes of September 26, 2022. Motion to approve the following minutes as presented. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Saucier, second by Councillor Tanoski. Questions? Call for the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Who is the mover seconder?
Councillor Saucier, Tanoski.
Thank you.
Item 8, présentation. We have none. Item 9, delegations. We have none. Item 10, consent items. Motion that all items listed under consent items be received as presented. Item A, request for the community grants from the Parks and Recreation Department 2022 budget. Item B, minutes of the Township of Russell Public Library Board, June 17, 2022. Need a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Conseiller Larin, seconded by Conseiller Brisson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Item 11, rapport des départements et comités du Conseil. Item 11A. Demande de retrait de l'application du contrôle des parties des lots, rapport PD 2022, voire numéro 16 de règlement. 1, 813, 815, 817, 819 rue Namur à Embrun et 2, 2001 à 2013 rue Berne à Embrun. Questions, commentaires, members du conseil? Pretty standard stuff. Anything to add from the administration? We're good. We'll go to item B. Item B, Russell Township Fire Services Community Risk Assessment Report Russ M02-2022. The council received report Russ M02-2022 dated October 3rd, 2022, and that recommendations will follow from the fire services early in the new year for approval. Mr. Fawnin, Chief Armstrong, did you want to speak to this file?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Yes, just for a few minutes. This report, community risk assessment, is not due until January 2024, but the department was proactive to get this done sooner than later. Before proceeding, we just want to thank other department heads that took part in this report to complete it. We went out to make sure we got somebody that we felt comfortable that was knew the fire service inside and out. So just a little bio on Art Booth as the consulting company that we hired for this. Art is a former assistant deputy fire marshal with the Office of the Fire Marshal Emergency Management. During his 29 years with OFM, Art performed roles of manager of operations from the Northeast region, manager of corporate services, and manager of operations in the Northern region program. Coordinator of fire protection advisor for Northern Ontario and Aboriginal communities. Art has actively engaged in the fire service since 1977. He has achieved expert level and knowledge of international fire protection practices, fire safety programs directed to public education, fire prevention, training, and fire investigation, hazardous material, auto-X, fire safety consulting, and other businesses. To each project, Art brings an intimate understanding of legislation, regulations, guidelines, and their intent relating to fire and emergency services protection. A strategic thinker with insight, leadership, and team building competency, Art has developed strong relationships, interpersonal, and communication skills over his career. Just a little bit of why we decided to go with Art with his severe background in fire. A consultant was very open-minded and was very easy to get along with the people involved. So without further ado, I will pass the report over to Art.
Thank you very much, Chief. Good evening, sir. Welcome.
Thank you. Your worship and members of council, thank you for the opportunity. The process that we undertook as a result of some regulations that came into being in 18, which requires each municipality in the province of Ontario to undertake a community risk assessment. And the community risk assessment has the onus and looks at the risk of fire, or fire departments are one of the initial responders. Emergency management also undertakes a community risk assessment. Our risk assessment that we undertook on behalf of the Township of Russell deals with the response perspective. Emergency management deals at a higher level from a management perspective of some of those same risks that we are going to identify within the document. So it's it's an educational process, and both from my part as well as from some of the staff of Russell Township, it took some learning to massage the report so that it was an acceptable report. Taking into consideration the initial writing of the report didn't address the role that emergency management takes, and some of the same aspects of it was purely one-sided from the fire department's perspective. Although if you read it probably still sounds that fashion, but we have had a couple of efforts of bringing some balance to that and understanding that emergency management also has a role in some of those same risks and management of some of those same emergencies that exist. So with that in mind. So the service began, like I said earlier, this community risk assessment was something that was brought in 18 under the along with two other accompanying pieces of legislation, regulations that were brought in by the Wing government. The Liberal government of today, they brought in mandatory training, and they brought in mandatory reporting, along with community risk assessment. Two of those pieces of legislation were removed by the Conservative government once they were elected, that being the mandatory training and the public reporting of fire department responses. Subsequent to that, the report also deals with the training that was taking out, the mandatory training for all firefighters in the province of Ontario was reintroduced by regulation and was effective, came into being on July 1st of this year, so just passed. So although it was taken out by the government, it was also reintroduced by the same government, a little differently than what it was in the past. So, but it's back. So the public reporting one remains out at this point. So, but the purpose of the community risk assessment is to look at 9 specific profiles. And those profiles specifically in the community are the geographic, the building stock, critical infrastructure, demographic, hazards in the community, public safety response, both by the fire service and other agencies, whether they're community services that are available within the community, the impact of the economic issues that around as a result of our fire, and the past loss and history of incidents in your community. So those were the profiles that were there. But fire protection services is, generally speaking, services that something council members are aware of. However, the understanding of the risks that are associated with fire, as well as their, are often left to the fire department leadership and the membership of that fire service to be able to mitigate or eliminate. However, the services that are delivered by the fire service and to the level in which they're delivered are exclusively the decision of council. The fire chief follows the direction and is to deliver that. Legislation is very, most of the legislation in fire regards the fact of what you have to do, not necessarily how you have to do it. That is the realm of the elected municipal officials. And that direction goes through. So this kind of gives it some of the ideas of the risks that exist in your community from an outside party looking in. It's not, we're not here to, I'm not here to tell the community what it needs, looks at it, identifies that risk, offers some solutions or some possible solutions to those operations that are there. So relatively, from those 9 particular components that we looked at, relatively all of those things are identified and allows the community to build on what deficiencies, if any, were found and moving that forward. So from that perspective. Fire service in Russell, in the township of Russell, is something that is primarily very similar, if not the same, that's been delivered throughout North America for a long time. It's focused on suppression or the emergency response perspective, not necessarily from a prevention and education perspective. That particular model has got us, historically, has got us from where we were then to where we are today. And in my opinion, that particular response model is not the most effective model, it's not the most efficient model, and in the current methods of what we see the fires reducing, emergency fire incidents reducing, I also do not believe that it's going to continue to be sustainable into the future. Our fire loss trends in the township of Russell, in Ontario, in Canada, and in North America tend to see a reduction in fire emergencies. We do see an increase in emergency responses by the fire service, but typically for other items other than fire. And again, that's a decision that council makes. If they're comfortable with what the fire service is doing, then so be it. That's what happens on it. and something that I believe that most people should examine and look at. So when we talk about the community itself, the population obviously is increasing significantly. And up until early May, your community, the township of Russell was an outlier in the province market, being the size of which you are without having any full-time staff. That obviously changed from a fire perspective. With Chief Armstrong becoming full-time. There's many communities that have a smaller population base that have full-time suppression. And you don't necessarily have to go very far to see that, in your own county, in your own area, you see how fire departments that have more full-time staff than Russell, the township of Russell. So those present some challenges. You have a significant amount of risk in your community from an inspection perspective that I believe your two fire prevention staff that you have on a volunteer part-time basis now, probably they don't have enough time to complete the inspections that would be beneficial to the community. So that should be examined and taken a look at and see whether or not some of those changes could be beneficial. Whether or not it's those staff becoming full-time or additional staff being utilized to perform inspections for the benefit of the community. So, in short, that's essentially the agreement, the document that you have. There's obviously a lot more to that particular document. But
Yeah. Definitely. We read through 42 pages, 42 pages. It was very insightful. Thank you very much. At this point, the recommendation is only to receive. We know that there will be further investigations done by the department and talk with the administration. Recommendation will follow in the new year. But do members of council have any questions, Councillor Associate?
Thank you for the report, and it was really interesting. And one question that I had was just about if people with certain disabilities or hearing or sight impairment or something like that, are those homes identified in our area that we know there's certain high risk components there?
Probably Chief Armstrong will want to take this one.
I guess only if the resident notifies us and then it's flagged on dispatch. But it's also something that's hard to control. If those people move or something, that information becomes invalid. So it's hard to keep track of, except in the nursing homes and stuff that we know what we're dealing with there. With residential, it's tough to keep track of.
Other questions, comments, members of council? Conseiller Brisson?
Yeah, in your report, you were saying that this report had to be done by 2024. Since it's done before, how long is it good for? Is it every 4 years or something like that? Or?
Actually, it's up to the fire chief to revisit it yearly.
So that way we don't fall too far behind.
That's correct. So within a year, some of the stuff that's the recommendations that need to be done, that's where the chief will come and present those recommendations that they've been looked after. So it's on the
And as alluded to by Mr. Booth, council has ultimate say on most of the service levels we're providing, so we'll have discussions on those and decide which level of risk, I guess, we're comfortable with at that point in time.
And the timing is good too, and if early in the new year, we'll be bringing the establishing bylaw back to revisit the core services and all that stuff, and then we will be able to educate council on where we are, where we should be going, stuff like that. As Art said, you're ultimately responsible, but it's our responsibility to educate you on that.
Perfect. And I think the old adage came to mind as Art was speaking. Now, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So I think that when reading the report, I fully, just because it's always been done a certain way doesn't mean we have to automatically keep doing it that way. So, other questions, comments, members of council? Anything else to add from the administration? No? Thank you very much for your presentation, Sue.
Thank you.
Prochain item. Item C, modification de la définition d'unité au règlement de la construction des systèmes d'eau et d'égouts de Limoges, le rapport FS 23-2022. Que le Conseil reçoive le rapport FS 23-2022 daté du 3 octobre 2022 et adopte 1. Le règlement proposé afin de modifier la définition pour le thème de référence unité. Pretty self-explanatory, but any questions, comments, members of council on this one? Item C for the water and sewer construction bylaw, we're just following what Nation Township has put into place. Anything to add from the administration? No? We're good? Okay, we'll go to the next item. Item D, Township Accountability and Transparency Policy Report CL10-2022. That council received report CL10-2022 dated October 3rd, 2022 and approved the bylaw to adopt the Township of Russell's Accountability and Transparency Policy. Questions, comments, members of council? Seeing anything to add from the administration? Mr. Fonan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. This is a legislative requirement, and we wanted to make sure this got on the agenda because it also goes to some of the accountabilities we want to put in place subsequently going into the mandate, so it's there now in the record as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. No further questions, comments. We'll move on to the next item. Item E, politique sur la délégation des pouvoirs et fonctions municipaux, rapport CAO 12-2022. Que le Conseil reçoive le rapport CAO 12-2022 daté du 3 octobre 2022 et approuve le règlement pour s'adopter une politique sur la délégation des pouvoirs et fonctions du Conseil. Questions, commentaires, membres du Conseil? Questions, comments, members of council? Mr. Fonan, I believe it's very similar to the previous report. So with no further questions, then we will go on to the next item. Item 12, reports from the investigator and the ombudsman. We have none. Item 13, avec motion, il n'y a pas. Item 14, item 14, question period on the meeting today. If anyone is interested in asking a question on the agenda, items that are on the agenda, please come up to the lectern and state your name and address for the record, please.
Jeanette Young, 200 Equinox Drive. I'm asking a question for my husband who is difficulty speaking. It's related to the new accountability and transparency policy under the section policy statement, number 5, that the complaints would be responded to in a timely manner, and we just want to know what the definition of a timely manner would be.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Fonan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. So the intent of the policy is to make sure that there is a response provided, an initial response within 2 business days, 40 hours. The response to rectifying the issue would obviously take longer because it would require investigation. But for the response itself, it would be 40 hours. That's what we're working towards with our client relations policy.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Seeing, hearing none, we will move on to the next item. Item 15, resolutions. Motion que le Conseil approuve toutes les recommandations énumérées à l'ordre du jour au numéro 11, rapport des départements du comité et comité du Conseil. Besoin d'un proposeur et d'un appuyeur, s'il vous plaît. Proposé, conseiller Brisson, appuyé, conseiller Lorrain. Call for the vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Bylaws. Motion that council approve bylaws 2022-104 to 2022-108 inclusively for first, second, and third reading as listed on the agenda. Need a mover and a seconder. Put on the table, please. Moved by Councilor Panofsky, seconded by Conseiller Associé. Call for the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 17, new business reports, we have none. Item 18, other business presented by council members. Councilor Sosi in regards to the firefighter recognition.
Thank you very much, Monsieur Mayor. I attended the Fireman's Gala last weekend, and just even this report tonight, just realizing all of our firefighters do for our community. It was a really beautiful event, and they were all piped in. And in our own department, we had Stéphane Séguin, who was recognized for 20 years service. We had Billy Cashman, who was recognized for 25 years of service, and Dwayne Bourguignon for 30 years of service, and Bruce Woolsey for 35 years of service. So I thank all our firefighters for being there, and some are volunteers, and just everything that they do for the community.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. In regards to thank you very much, indeed. It's nice to be able to recognize the firefighters in such a fashion. It had been a few years because of COVID that they did meet, so it was nice that they were able to get together. Item 19, public consultations and hearings, we have none. Item 20, annonce n'a pas. Item 21, session à huis clos, we have none. Item 22, confirming bylaw. The bylaw 2022-109 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Russell at its regular council meeting held on October 3rd, 2022, be read a first, second, and third time and pass. Need a mover and a seconder to put on the table. Moved by Conseiller Larin, second by Councillor Chinoski. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Our next regular public meeting of council will be held on Monday, October 17th, 2022, and we are adjourned at 6:26 p.m. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great evening. Can you tell we're in election?